We're passionate about bringing business leaders the insights you need to keep doing great work. And so are our friends at Belay. Belay is an incredible 100% remote organization revolutionizing productivity with virtual assistants, bookkeepers, social media managers, and their podcast, One Next Step, is so full of practical tips and actionable tools to help you run your business so it stops running you. Find them at onenextsteppodcast.com or subscribe in the Apple Podcast app today. Now, let's dive into today's conversation.
Welcome to System and Soul, the podcast focused on the human energy that runs your business. I'm Chris White, along with my co-host,
Benj Miller.
All right, you guys ready? Here we go. Jake, drop that beat.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
System and Soulville, we have a fast-paced treat for you today. Coming back with my boy, my friend, longtime colleague, and he's been on the show once before, Clay Scroggins. And man, today, I'm telling you, we go fast-paced. We rip through this thing. But the three things we're pulling out here is the power of the invitation that you give when you say, I don't know. I love this conversation. So fun, so strong. The second one, Clay advocates that while we talk about getting the right people on the bus, we need to invite a few people who feel like the wrong people. Super interesting. And he leaves us with a challenge on that one that I think we can all use and all look at. And the third, man, I don't even know how to title this bad boy, but we talk about conflict and how it's changing and how we deal with it's changing because people are not as able to handle conflict as they once were. So what do we do? How do we approach people that maybe shrivel up and don't know how to handle the conflict or the feedback? So good. There's so much packed in here. I think you're going to like it. Here we go. System and Soul, welcome back. We've got a fun one today, my friend, and a repeat guest, but it's been a long time. Clay Scroggins, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Benj. So glad to be back. Excited to see all that's happening with System and Soul.
Oh yeah.
Hey, I was actually telling somebody about it yesterday. I was talking to a guy who's like I think he's a giant certified consultant or something, and I was just trying to understand more of what he does. And I was like, well, are you familiar with the different ways to create systems for your teams? And he said, yeah, for sure. And he named some different things. And I said, well, my buddy created this thing called System and Soul and he goes, ooh, I like that. I was like, that's cool that he just resonated that quickly. I hope that that's happening a lot.
It is happening a lot. And what I love about it is not that everybody resonates with it like that, but the people that do, it's a strong magnetism, and the people that don't, that's fine. You're probably not our people. That's okay. So it gives a little bit of a self-ascribed tribe just by that name and the ethos there.
That's really good.
Appreciate that. Hey, you got a new book out.
Yes, I do.
Tell me about it.
The Aspiring Leader's Guide to the Future. I started... I had done 2 books with the publisher that I've been working with. The first book did really well. The second book did not do great. And so this third book was, I was like, I got to do well on this one. And I didn't really have an idea. I went to the publisher. I said, hey, at what point can I just say, let's do a deal and I'll figure out what the topic's going to be? And they said, we're not there. You're not there yet. And I was like, okay, rude, but okay. So anyway, it was one of those, I'd never done this before, but I picked this topic. I had never talked about it. I hadn't spent a lot of time thinking about it, but I picked the topic. I want to talk about the future of leadership and signed the deal with them. And then I had, about 12 months to research this topic and try to put some energy and effort into trying to figure out what is the future of leadership, because it's clearly changing. But the question
it was just a research project that you wanted to do.
That's right. That's right. That's it.
All right, we're going to get into that in a minute. I love that you just told us like the second book, not so great.
Yeah. Well,
in your perspective, was the first one that much better than the second one?
I didn't feel like the writing was, and I didn't feel like the content was, but I mean, this is something, I mean, this is not, I don't know how relevant this would be for people that are listening to this today, but
who cares? It's you and me.
There was a day where content was king. This is what the people in publishing have told me. That if the book was really good, if it was rich, if it was solid, if it had something to say, it would sell. And if it didn't, it wouldn't. But now, I don't know, I guess because of the way digital marketing has changed, the way people are buying books has changed, the way people are consuming content has changed. It's less about the quality of the content and it's more about the topic, the title, the book cover. Does it hit a felt need? So I don't think the content was that much worse. I just think the title did not hook people. It did not create this instinctual felt need or it didn't speak to an instinctual felt need.
Yeah. Or people weren't ready to deal with the topic.
Yeah. Yeah. You were helpful in it at one point because I was telling you about, I was, bitching and moaning about how it wasn't selling well. And you said, well, I think part of it is people see that title. The title was How to Lead in a World of Distraction. And they think, okay, I get it. I need to put my phone down. But I don't necessarily want to do that.
Right. I know what I should do, not what I want.
Exactly. And here's
the other problem. Here's the other problem is your 3 books are in every airport in America, but they're all 3 next to each other. So it may not be that it's bad. It might be that there's 2 great books on either side of it. And I'm going to go with the latest one or that first one really resonates. There is an audience for that first one.
That's true.
It's very clear. So
I hope so. I do.
All right, man. So you boiled this futuristic leadership down to 9 things that you saw coming. But as you know, on the podcast, we're going with your top 3. So talk us through the top 3 ways that you see leadership changing.
Great. Number 1, you do not have to know it all in order to lead. So there's this bias that we all have. There's a professor at University of Michigan, Dave Meyer, or Mayer is his name, who he created, or at least he's the one who published about this philosophy of this bias around leadership, that if I say to you, Benj, describe a leader, you have things that you would say, confident, courageous, competent, and eventually you would get to knowledgeable, that there is this certain set of knowledge or this basis of knowledge that I have, and that makes me a leader, which is good and bad. It's good because it gives us something to aim for, get educated, understand, learn more. The downside is there's a lot of people sitting back and waiting that feel like I want to step out and learn how to grow my influence. I want to step out and create something, start something, build something, move something forward, but I don't know enough about it to do that. And that is something from the past. In the future, we cannot rely on what we know or don't know in order to feel like more of a leader. And there's a whole bunch of reasons why, but that's the place I always start.
I read something the other day. Somebody was saying that the project manager, a really good project manager in an organization, is like a mini CEO. Because they have to know so many things, manage so many things, deal with so many fires. And I think that's probably like a miniature COO if I'm getting really critical on it. But if we think about it in that terms, I hear you saying kind of the same thing. The project manager may not be the one that knows all the intricacies of all the things that have to happen, but they are the one to lead that project.
Exactly. And it speaks to, number 1, it speaks to how much information is constantly being created. You turned me on to, is it Kevin Kelly's book, Inevitable, I believe, where he fleshes out the 12 most significant technological changes. Yeah. One of the things he talks about in that book is that we are all going to be perpetually stuck in the noob state, that the amount of updates, the amount of information being created, the amount of technology that's being invented or developed, you can't stay up on everything. I mean, I had to ask somebody the other day, they kept saying, well, you just need to put a link tree in your Instagram, And I had to be like, hey, I'm sorry. This makes me feel like an idiot. I feel like a moron for having to ask this, but can you tell me what a link tree is? Right. Because and what we do oftentimes is when we either don't ask because we feel like, well, I should know that, or we ask it and then disqualify ourselves from, oh, well, I guess I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready to be a leader because I don't know what a link tree is. And the truth is you can't keep up. It is impossible to keep up with the amount of change. We are going to be perpetually stuck in this noob state, and we have to just accept it. And in a way, we have to own it. And I don't. So that's not always easy.
Is there a trick here? Like what's the mentality that we have that helps us break?
Thanks
through?
For asking, Benj. Yes.
Are you gonna tell me? Yeah, just read the book and you'll get your answer.
No. I love that you're asking that, because you're like, okay, get to what do we do, which is so great. I mean, that's what the chapter does on it. But I think these 3 words, I don't know, and I know it's 4 words, except for that beautiful contraction that's making do not into don't. But I don't know are 3 words that great leaders have to have on ready in the future. And there was a day where if you said, I don't know, you felt like you weren't a leader. You felt like you don't have what it takes. And we have to not only accept it, but we have to celebrate saying it, because those 3 words, I don't know, it does quite a bit for us. Can I read real quickly, Benj, this? There's this quote that I use from John Mulaney. Are you a fan of his comedy?
Well, I'm a fan of comedy.
Okay. Well, John Mulaney was a writer for Saturday Night Live for a while. I like all of his stand-up specials, but he talked about this, and I thought, when I was in the middle of writing about it, when I bumped into this little section of one of his stand-up specials, he says, in elementary school, it doesn't matter what you know. It doesn't matter what you think. It just matters what you know. You have to have answers to questions. And if you say, I don't know, you get an X on your test and you get it wrong. And that's not fair, because your brain has never been smaller. And also, that's not how life works. If you came to me now and you were like, hey, John, name 3 things the Stamp Act of 1765 accomplished, I'd go, I don't know, get out of my apartment. But when you're a little kid, you can't say, I don't know. And you should be able to. That should be an acceptable answer on a test. You should be able to write in, I don't know. I know you told me, but I've had a very long day. I am very small and I have no money. And so you can imagine the kind of stress I'm under. I love that little bit that he has. And obviously, I'm not advocating for kids being able to say, I don't know on a test. They should have to say the answer to whatever the question is, or they should be encouraged to. But as a leader, if you aren't willing to do that, if you don't have that on ready, you're going to end up faking. You're going to end up being a phony. And that is that's always been dangerous, but that is more dangerous today than it has ever been before.
Yeah, there's a level of vulnerability to say, I don't know, right?
Yes.
You just sparked to me. I think I know when I learned this lesson. I was in college and I was designing websites, and this computer science guy who lived across the hall in the dorm was building them for me. And I got into a conversation with him where I said, like, how do you know all this? Like, everything I throw at you, like, you got to know something new. And he said, Benj, the best engineers don't know the answers. The best engineers know how to figure it out. And I was
you go.
Oh, world-class Googling. That's the key.
There you go. That's right. That's right. And the thing it does, Benj, when you're in a job, in a role, whether you're leading a small business, whether you're leading a team in a small business, yes, it allows you to be authentic and real. It does take vulnerability, and it extends an invitation to the people around you. And that, to me, is one of the most attractive things you can do as a leader, is to invite other people in, to say, hey, I recognize my limitations and I'm not going to fake it in an area that I don't know. In fact, I'm going to admit what I don't know. And by doing so, I'm inviting you to bring your strengths, to partner them with my weaknesses. I'm going to bring my strengths and partner with your weaknesses. And together we're going to do something really significant. I think it's always been important, but this is crucial for anybody who's wanting to lead in the future.
Hey, listener, if you're loving this episode, we've got an idea for you. Check out the One Next Step podcast. One Next Step is hosted by Belay CEO Trisha Shortino and CFO Lisa Zeveld. They're serving up weekly episodes with actionable business tips and tools from fantastic guests like Damon John, Michael and Megan Hyatt, Chris Walker, and more. They cover everything from how to leverage your executive assistant
to 3 tools to unlocking your leadership potential to what do you do if you can't hire a CFO? And every week they even offer a free resource, like Belay's latest ebook, Delegate to Elevate. In it, you'll learn how to accomplish more by juggling less. So head to belaysolutions.com/delegate. Download your free copy of that today. Now, let's get back to today's conversation.
I love that. I love ending on that note. It's an opportunity to invite other people's strengths into the conversation. What's number 2?
Number 2, numero dos. Get the right people on the bus and a few who aren't so right.
Oh.
Get the right people on the bus and a few who aren't so right. So,
I just went, duh. Wait, what?
Exactly. Right. And I felt so, this took a lot of courage for me to publish this because this was my moment to take on the Godfather himself, Jim Collins. So Good to Great was released 20 years ago. It sold millions and millions of copies, but he coined that phrase, get the right people on the bus, which truthfully, it is a phenomenal phrase. I mean, you just say it and it's portable, it's sticky, it's memorable. Yeah. You just know exactly what it means. The challenge is that 20 years ago, I think the definitions of those words were different than what they may be today. Specifically, the word right. Get the right people on the bus. I would say 20 years ago, for me at least, and this is where I feel very cautious about this. I would never accuse anyone else of doing this, but I'll speak from my own experience. Right, for me, 20 years ago meant same. Get the same people on the bus. And there is obviously value to that. There's value to chemistry. There's value to being able to work with people that get your culture. But the danger is that we take people who might actually be the ones that are going to help us get where we need to get, and we move them off the bus, or we fail to invite them onto the bus because we label them as wrong. So some examples would be people that are different, obviously aren't wrong. And I mean different as in maybe different gender, different race, different education background, from a different part of the world, different age. If we're going to make the kinds of decisions we need to make, we need people that see the world very differently that are sitting around the table. Abraham Lincoln's phenomenal example of this. I mean, he chose I'm staring at the book, Doris Kearns Goodwin's Team of Rivals, but he runs against these people, defeats them in the race for president, and then invites them onto his cabinet. Unheard of. I mean, imagine Joe Biden. Yeah. Exactly. And imagine Joe Biden inviting Donald Trump on his cabinet, right? I mean, he wouldn't do it and he wouldn't even say yes. I mean, imagine Donald Trump inviting Hillary Rodham Clinton on his cabinet. I mean, it just wouldn't happen. And it didn't happen then either, except for Abraham Lincoln being courageous enough to say, these people see the world different than I see the world, and I need their perspective because they represent a significant portion of our country. And so they helped him craft the Emancipation Proclamation, when to roll it out, how to roll it out, what it was going to say. And in such a profound way that it actually changed something significant in our country. So we have to watch out for different. Different's not wrong. Driven is not wrong. A lot of times we label people that are driven as overly ambitious and there is selfish ambition, which is dangerous. But sometimes the most driven people are the ones that unlock the ideas that can help us get to the future. I mean, our mutual friend Robbie Engel is a good example of this. There's a lot of organizations. Are you serious?
Absolutely. When you said that, yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of organizations that would say, nah, he's bucking the system. He's too driven. He's too ambitious. But he is Jack Welch used to call this edge, that it's the kind of person that's not just trying to improve something, plus or minus 5% every year. It's the person that's going, no. Here's a different way to do it that's going to lead to 20% growth, right? He's that kind of guy. And it can be disruptive. But I have found those people are challenging to me, but I got to have them around me because they make me better. I would also say difficult to manage is not wrong. There was a guy that I managed in one job. I freed up his future. He went and worked for a different part of the organization. 5 years later, I changed jobs and I'm now managing him again. Mm-hmm. And so we sit in our first one-on-one meeting going, well, this is awkward. What are we going to do now? And what I realized is that the things that I thought were difficult to manage in him were actually things in me that needed to change.
Oh, yeah.
His difficulty was bumping into something that was a growth area for me. And 5 years prior to this, I was unwilling to face it. Fortunately, I had this second go around that kind of allowed me to see it in a new way. And it helped me grow in a way that I wouldn't have grown in. So get the right people on the bus and a few who are not so right.
So I want to move on, but I want to ask this one question because, and I don't know if there's an answer here or if it's just the obvious, but when we work with leadership teams and we talk about, when we define the right people on the bus,
mm-hmm.
I think what you're talking about is really important. So I'm not negating that at all. Like there's a whole separate conversation of like, how do we get the different on the bus?
Mm-hmm.
But when we define right, it's usually a values conversation. So, and the values.
Don't you have 3 that you encourage people to pay attention to?
Yeah. 3 to 4. Most of our company like dial it in.
Based on what they value.
Yes. They're,
got it.
As an organization, this is what they value. And that's how an organization takes on a personality, is through those values, because they look in a certain way, they act a certain way, they treat each other a certain way. And usually that's defined by the values. So I think, maybe I'm processing my own question. I think we want as much different as we can get within what we've defined as the non-negotiable values of the organization. Is that fair?
Yeah. And I do see the challenge or the rub of what you're talking about. What I would say is I would question our ability to even assess whether or not that person fits the values, because I just know for me, I am so much more likely to ascribe more potential to someone who looks like me, is around my same age, was educated like me, came from a similar family that I came from, similar part of the country that I came from. It's just in me to do that. And so I would say leaders that are using that system to say, hey, pick your values, and that's the way you should assess whether or not a person is a fit or not. I would just do as much as you can to look in the mirror and go, am I able to be objective in this? Because what ends up happening is you end up surrounding yourself. And we have all seen this for years. I mean, where I learned this is from Frank Blake, who was the former CEO of Home Depot. Frank Blake said, I would go to a team that looked the same at Home Depot and I would go, you got 6 months, fix it. Because what they had unintentionally done is they had selected people under the guise of they fit our values, but they just so happened to look the same, talk the same, educated the same, come from the same background. And so I would question our ability to be objective in assessing people's fit around those values. Man, and I think the more we can do to challenge ourselves, the better.
I think that is exactly what it is. It's just a great challenge.
Hey, podcast listeners. This is System and Soul Coach Michelle Krolchak here to share a tip with you today that I give to my clients working to gain clarity and control of their businesses. The first phase of working with a leadership team starts by helping them get really articulate with the vision, mission, and values of the business. It's about getting everything out of their heads and aligned as a team. But the real magic happens when an organization puts in the same time and energy into pulling it through the rest of the organization. You help everyone clearly see what you can see and clearly understand their part in helping make it all happen. With clarity comes excitement, engagement, commitment, and probably the most important thing of all, trust. Mind you, it's easier said than done, but it pays off in spades when it happens. I hope you find this tip helpful. Enjoy the rest of the podcast.
All right, what's number 3?
Number 3 is conflict never goes away. It never goes perfect, but it's always worth it. So conflict is, I had this chapter I wanted to do, Benj, around conflict, and I thought, well, conflict's not new, right? But I would say it is, if it was important before, it is essential now. That every leader has had to deal with more conflict in the past 2 years than they had dealt with in the past 5 years because of the way the world has changed. So a couple of things are happening. Number one, yesterday's taboo topics are now interview questions. So there was a day where you wouldn't talk about sexual orientation, gender identity, racial reconciliation. You wouldn't talk about that at work. And now people are asking questions about, hey, what's your view on that in the interview? And I'm going, what is your name again? Like, I don't even know you. And we're about to dig into this really complicated, multi-layered, and you want me to have a 30-second answer to this. So work is just getting the line between what you would say, oh, well, I can talk about that with my friends, but I'm not going to talk about that at work. That's getting so much more blurry because of the news cycle, because we see these issues now as they're more integrated into our everyday life, including work as well. And then secondly, we're not getting better. We're actually, as a society, we are growing less mature, not more mature on handling conflict. So there was a day, I mean, the way people handle it now is figure out what you think, go find other people that think the same way, retreat to your corner, and then lob bombs over social media to people who think differently than you. And that's obviously there's better ways to handle it, right? I mean, we've got kids that are growing up with helicopter parents where they've never had to have some of the harder conversations that you and I may have had. This is where I feel like a grandpa going like, we walked to school in the snow.
We got
but I mean, you talked to the Jonathan Haidt wrote a book called The Coddling of the American Mind. Remarkable book, but he tells story after story of HR executives and dean of admissions at schools who would go, we accepted a kid into the school, or we offered a 24-year-old a job. And the 24-year-old said, before I say yes to this, would you mind having a conversation with my mom? I mean, can you even imagine?
No. Nope.
I mean,
I laugh because I know it's true, though. I have heard these stories, right?
Yes. So we are not becoming better at conflict. We're becoming worse. But
so here's, I'm going to hijack this. I'm going to hijack this conversation. Go for it. Clay, tell me. We'll just turn this into therapy because that's what podcasts are, free therapy. What do we do as leaders when we have mostly younger? I don't know.
That's
though.
right.
There's some boomers that are like this too, but
totally
they can't. They just shrivel up under feedback. They desperately want it, but they can't handle it.
Yeah. Well, there was a day where I built trust if I was honest. And now there's this societal desire or definition of trust that we will build trust if you promise not to hurt me. And oftentimes the feedback feels like hurt or rejection. And so we go, well, then I can't trust you because you told me something hard.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So I think
feedback's like the most loving thing you could do.
I mean, you're the only person that's cared enough to tell them. I mean, it's remarkable that you're willing to. So I give a 4-step plan. I'm like, look, you're going to have more of it. You got to get better at it. No matter where you are, you have to become a black belt at having conflict because the world is filled with more of it and we're not getting better at it as a society. So affirm what's true about the other person, affirm what you can say. I like working with you. I care about you. I believe in you. Create safety. Safety is the most essential ingredient in any hard conversation. Number 2, would you ask some strategic questions? Because there's something you don't know.
Yes.
So before you give the feedback, there's something you don't know. There's something going on in their life. There's something, the way they see the world, that if you understand, it doesn't make what you are about to tell them wrong. It just is going to help you contextualize it. And so would you ask them questions? How long has it been this way? What's your greatest fear? What is it going to cost if we were to change this? When did you develop this philosophy and how long have you thought about it? So whatever that question is, would you ask? And you have to assume that there's something you don't know. And if you knew it, it would help you understand it. Then you acknowledge. Number 3, affirm, ask, acknowledge. That's just closing the loop. And then number 4, then you advise, or then you offer the feedback, or then you tell your boss, well, would we be willing to try this for 3 months? Would you be willing to let me give this a shot? Because I believe that it's that important to our clients.
Yeah.
So that process, and obviously it's not going to make it go perfect, but the only 2 things you can control. Number 1, you can control the order in which you go through. Most people advise. And when you do that first, you end up having to acknowledge you were wrong, ask for forgiveness, and affirm you still like your job. And then the second thing you can control is the amount you prepare. If you put 10 minutes of thought into those 4 things, it would help you so much more to give you some emotional stability, to give you a better frame of mind, to give you to know exactly what you want to say, what you don't want to say. You can control the order and the preparation. And if
That's
you
so
would,
good.
it will help it go so much better.
We spend 10 minutes worrying, but not prepping.
That's right.
So just
Take
just
those
use
10
that
minutes
time
of
a little
worry
better.
and just switch it. That's right. That's right.
All right. Clay, awesome hanging out with you. Fast-paced conversation, but you got 3 books, you got a podcast, you got an email newsletter. Tell us where to go to find all that.
ClayScroggins.com is the easiest thing to do. Yeah, there's a weekly, I send out some, what I'm trying, everybody's trying to carve out their own space of what they're trying to send that's helpful. Mine is based around 3 things: leadership, levity, and links. And so I like things that are humorous, comical. It's amazing how people sometimes comment on the leadership stuff, but they almost, if they comment, it's usually about the levity. It's about whatever stupid, funny thing that I'm passing along. So yeah, go sign up, be a part of it. How to Lead podcast, where you can get your podcasts. But more than that, I'm grateful for System and Soul. I used it for a couple of years when I was leading a team, and it was massively impactful. And so I wish you all the best. Thanks for taking your spotlight, putting it on me for a few minutes.
Oh, you're so worthy. Clay, appreciate your time hanging out with us. See you next time.
Yeah, thanks, Benj.